All right, welcome to Hidden Tracks. We're back here today. I have a special guest. His name's Adam Meyers. He's formerly the sound engineer at Maxwell's in Hoboken, New Jersey. He's currently a professor with doing computer animation, things like that. He also has a radio show called Ear Damage on 0dB Radio on Live 365. For those of you out there who are listening around the world that don't know what Maxwell's is, Maxwell's it's a big club that existed through the 80s and 90s, a little bit through the 2000s, that is in Hoboken, New Jersey. It was a phenomenal place. So many bands have come through there. It actually used to be a factory. It was a Maxwell house factory, right?
No, actually, it was the cafeteria for the Maxwell House factory, which used to be on the street, and then they had an underground tunnel, and you could go through the tunnel, and you could actually back in the basement. Back in the day, you could see the tunnel, and they would come and have their lunch and whatnot and such, and then go there. There's like a whole underground system in that part of Hoboken at one point in time.
Yeah, so it's such a well-known place in New Jersey. I mean, the New Yorker magazine voted it the number one club in New York, even though it was in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is pretty funny. Village Voice at one time said it was the number one reason to leave the city for a show and dinner was Maxwell's. And, you know, the list goes on, and at one point, Peter Buck from REM had bought into it in the late 80s. But, I mean, bands like Nirvana, Soundgarden, Smashing Pumpkins, Guided by Voices. I mean, so many bands have come through there. And it was so small. It held about 150 to 200 people. Went through some changes at some points. But the guy that's with me now, Adam, that you just heard speaking, was a sound engineer there for about 15 years. So we're going to have a lot of stories. I'm sure he's going to tell us a lot of things and everything what he's doing now. So I just want to say, Adam, thanks so much for doing this today. I really
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's so rare that someone wants to talk about it, and it was quite a ride. Yeah. It was great. Maxwell's.
Yeah.
Maxwell's was like really a chapter in my life that was one of those main event chapters. There's so many great ones. I've been doing sound for a long time, and winding up there. And it was really, I wound up there. It was kind of a crazy thing. I left college after a period of time. I'd been out touring and mixing and doing stuff for years. I was housed at a couple other places, and I went back to college to produce records, and I switched over to TV, video, animation, and stuff. And I came back, and I had nowhere I was homeless. You know, one of those great stories of being homeless, and I encourage everybody to be homeless at one point in time. For a second. And it was funny because it was, when I got involved, it was when Maxwell's was the brewery, which is considered the dark time for Maxwell's.
The tavern. They called it Maxwell's Tavern.
They had the pasta bowl. Yeah. And what was going on was Steve Fallon had sold it out. He was the original guy that brought it to life, and Todd was gone. And I went in where my brother was living in Weehawken, and my cousin was there. So my cousin, Shoehead, was the bartender, and my brother Chris was basically like Norm there, like if you think about Cheers. And it was crazy. There was no management, it was just really
control.
There was no control. It was phenomenal. And the back room, there was no heat, and like they would have like all the artists in town migrated there. It became it was like a really bohemian situation there in the back room, and they would have poetry night and art night, and it was really a freak fest. I mean, Maxwell's in the whole scheme of things is, legendary with crazy, amazing things going on, but that little moment of time is like a footnote that was really funky and fun. And I came in and basically I started doing sound there. There was this guy, John Ravito. He was the booker, and Rob Affuso from Skid Row was the booker too, and Rob brought me in, and John started getting me shows. And at that point in time, the apartment upstairs used to be the dressing room. They let me live up there. So I was living up there with this guy, Fat John the Cook, God rest his soul.
A job in a room. Man.
A job in a room. It was great. And I had no money, so it was even better. So I wound up there with him, and Rob Affuso would sleep there. And then this guy, Terry, who was the manager, who I think was the brother-in-law of the owner at that period of time, was there, but he was like, he was a sauce guy, and he really just never left the apartment. So there was no control there, and there really was no budget for bands either. It was kind of a crazy thing, and it was like a fall to pieces thing.
So are you just like, if there's no budget for bands, are you giving people the opportunity to play?
That was it. The opportunity was there, so all the local bands came through, and every once in a while they would score a band. I remember like SOD came in one day, and it was like, oh my God, SOD's playing, and SOD played the back room, and the guy that mixed it was the guy who trained me how to do sound like a decade earlier. So it was like awesome to see him, Bruce Robbins. And like Mike Peters of The Alarm came in. But we had all these like crazy little weird events, and like the Space Shits came in and they played. And I remember the guy in Space Shits had a fist fight with the other band and it, like stopped the show when the 20 people there were out. Like we'd have Ska Fest, and the beauty of Ska Fest is there was one guy in every band, and it was all the same song all day.
Yeah.
It really was. It was fantastic. But things like that, we had Accordion Fest. But it was a good time. And the funny thing I always like to think about from that time is it was really cool. Great people there. There was a loading blanket over the soundboard when I first got there, and I'd sit there under the loading blanket every day. And 15 years later, when I left, and then I went back for the closing, it was still sitting in there, the blankets in the sound room. But there were some great shows there, just like bands you would never even know and hear of, and it was just a really cool time. And then it shut down, and Todd Abramson bought it, and Dave Post and Steve Shelley from Sonic Youth, they all got involved, and it closed down. And then there was a little bit of controversy before I went in, where they used to have this like this Maxwell's teacup sign over the front door. I don't know if you ever remember that.
It was on the corner.
Yeah, it was on the corner. So my brother had taken it down and put it in his house because, there was no rules at that point in time. So when it flipped, Todd wanted it back, and he wasn't going to give me the job till he got it back. So basically, my brother knew a prop designer who replicated it in styrofoam, and he got that one for Todd. So Todd, if you're listening now, you don't have the original.
You don't have the original.
You don't have the original. The value just dropped 100%. It's out there. Yeah. But that got me back in, and I got to tell you, the ride with Todd was, man, it was a ride. Everybody and anybody played there, and it was really great. Yeah. It was really great. I mean, the caliber of acts. And what happened was I became the only sound guy there for periods of time, so it's not like a 9-to-5 job if you think about it. It's you walk in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you walk out at 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's not 4 days a week. It's sometimes you'd have 13 shows in a row.
Yeah.
So you got 13 days in a row, maybe a day off, and it would just go on and on and on. But the people that play there are just phenomenal. I mean, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs would play in there. I mean, the Stars came down from Canada. GBV was in there. I have a ton of recordings. The old 97s played there. Yeah. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
The list of bands that came through there. That's why it was so when it closed. It was heartbreaking for a lot of us who grew up in the area, and that's where I saw some of my first punk shows that weren't in a firehouse. That was at a live place,
a real club. Yeah.
It was a real club, and it was. It was unsuspecting that there was a club in the back because it looked like a little restaurant in the front. Yeah. But the back is where all the mayhem happened, and it was awesome. And for you to get to that point of being the guy at Maxwell's, I mean, it all starts from a small journey when you're a kid, right? So you're a little kid and you're listening to music, but you really don't know what music is. Was there a point in your life as a child when you first heard something that was so different that just changed what music was to you? And I always go back to some of the things, like it was you had cartoon theme songs, you had Sesame Street, but then one day you heard a song or you heard music that just started you on the journey to finding out what music was all about. Do you remember any type of moment when you were that young and something changed when you heard something and you were like, wow, what is this, and how do I get more of it?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. I do remember certain things. So when we were younger, my father was a narcotics detective, so he was a kind of a hard guy. My mom was a mom, and she had a record collection. She was a big Sinatra person, but I remember like Fifth Dimension records, and I remember Peter, Paul, and Mary. And what really impacted my mind was from just a lock-in as a kid, I remember watching Star Blazers. And the opening theme to Star Blazers always echoes in my brain.
Okay.
And the songs from like H.R. Puffin stuff, all that stuff. But I think the biggest influence in my life was...
H.R. Puffin stuff was a big thing for me, too.
Oh, my God.
I mean, and even that show, it was so... If a child watched it today, they would be so scared. That was like H.R. Puffin stuff, Sigmund and Sea Monster.
Oh, very much so. Or the Magic Garden, Wonderama, all that good kid stuff. That was real music. I grew up in the 70s, so I mean, that was the deal right there. What had the biggest impact in my life was I had two older brothers. And my two older brothers, they started listening to like the Outlaws and Van Halen and Black Sabbath and all that good stuff. And just by nature, I was there.
Yeah.
And I would listen to them too, and Led Zeppelin came in the mix. And I remember the big event was like my brother got like Led Zeppelin 3 for Christmas, and I was like 9 years old, and we had to listen to Led Zeppelin 3, and I still listen to Led Zeppelin 3. So that was the impact there. And I remember going into fifth grade, and because of all this, I became like this knowledgeable music guy. So like anybody into music that it was like, you know, fringing in fifth grade, like, hey man, you ever hear of like Van Halen?
Yeah, you pawned off. Your older brothers gave you the
they gave me that
and building blocks.
They gave me that knowledge.
Now you passed it off. It's, hey guys, look what I got.
So that was really cool. But when it rolled into junior high, everything kind of changed because heavy metal came in the mix, and at that point in time, we're talking like 1982. Metal was really like, you know, the Scorpions and Judas Priest and all that good stuff. But the second I hit junior high, there was a group of guys, and they were like, hey, there's a punk rock show down at the VFW Hall, End Products playing, and we're going to bring this band up from the city, Agnostic Front. Great. And then, hey, you ever hear of this band Metallica? You know, they just came out. They got this demo. So we started, like, listening to Metallica, and I started I started tape trading, like, live concerts and demos, and I'd have my list.
Well, that was a big way to get metal back then. That was the only way. That was the only way to get it.
And then you would get a fanzine, and then I remember, like, you would have to drive. You could kind of get stuff at the mall, but if you wanted the good stuff, you'd have to drive to, like, Hartsdale in Westchester. I was about an hour north of Manhattan, so about a half hour south, or we'd have to go out to Connecticut. In Danbury, there's a really cool punk rock store. Yeah. So you'd always find that older kid who was 16, who was, like, the metalhead or the punk guy, and he's like, I'll drive. Yeah. You just pay for gas. And back then, it was like a quarter for gas. Yeah. And I wish I had everything I owned back then.
We all do.
We all do. But I was just looking on, I just found this forum I was looking on. It's like Heavy Metal Rarities, and they have a whole section of fanzines. And basically you could go through, and people have scanned in old classic fanzines. So I was like thumbing through that this afternoon, and it's like, oh my God. So with that was really a big part of my life for a while. And then once again, my music knowledge is out there. And I stumbled across, you know, hanging out with the local bands, and like in high school, we had one band that became something. They were a punk band called Up Front. I don't know if you're familiar. They were in the Connecticut scene, and Jeff and the gang, and they started as metalheads, and then they were like skinhead, straight edge guys by the end of high school, which I thought was great. But what happened with that was through them, I connected to other people, and in high school, I started managing a band, like this thrash band, and we would try and get shows at like backyards and shit like that, and I would take care of them and all that stuff. And
so you just jumped right in. You went from your brothers, like, here's Van Halen, here's Led Zeppelin, and then you saw basically a wave pool and dove head first and said, okay, let's take this wild ride.
No, but you know what? It was just like, it was exciting. It was something. Yeah. You know, and at that point in time, like, metal was nothing. And the same with hardcore. You got to think about that. At the same time, in our school, it was great because we had the hardcore kids and the metal kids. We were considered the burnouts or whatnot and such. But we would hang out, and they were both developing scenes. And that's one thing I look at today is, like, where's the scene? Is the scene K-pop? I mean, what's the scene? You know, there's got to be a grassroots thing. And that's where we were talking a little bit about before, like with the Academy Awards, it's got to be this, and this, and this. Yeah. But it's those bands that aren't that. Yeah. They're the ones that make the change. And
they break the rules.
They break the rules, and they have something new, and that's what hooks people in. And a lot of great artists suffer because maybe they're just a little bit too weird or whatnot and such, but there's always going to be one or two that float to the top. When I was in high school, that was the exciting thing. was music, and I couldn't get enough music. I couldn't get enough records. We would drive to a specific parking lot on Friday night to get that Long Island radio station that would tune in at 11 o'clock at night, and we'd listen to Fingers Metal. Boom. Yeah. We'd get 11 o'clock at night on Thursday, and we'd sit there in Kentucky Fried Chicken parking lot, and we would hang out, drink some beer, smoke some pot, and listen to, like, Virgin Steel. And we'd be like, yeah. So that was that ride. And what happened was, it was kind of cool. I went to this, I kind of sucked in school, but I was kind of smart at the same time, and my principal put me in a program, like a leadership program called Walkabout. It was like a senior program, and we did all these like weird things, like instead of gym, we'd go camping. We had, instead of English class, we had a free writing teacher. We would do free writing, and we had Allen Ginsberg came in, who's our teacher. Wow. And then we had Pete Seeger come and hang out for the day. So we had hippies, like, in charge of the school, but we had the opportunity to do anything we want. And what happened was, I was already managing my band. We were still doing that, senior high school, making flyers. And they let me make my first fanzine. I made this fanzine, Power and Pain, and it was like on a Mac 1 computer, like the Lisa computer, and it had Freddy Krueger on the cover. And I would write all these bands. I wrote Nasty Savage and Annihilator and Repulsion, and I wrote Across the Germany to Iron Angel. And you'd write the questions, and you'd hope they'd write back. Yeah. Right? And that would be great because you'd get a letter back, and they would have your paper, and they'd fill in a blank, and they'd send you a couple like Polaroid shots. Yeah. And it was like, wow.
That was a reason to go to the mailbox every day, too.
Yeah, it was great. So then I put that together, and what happened was, towards the end of that, basically, I had to do an internship. So I went to the local college, and they had a radio station. So I went and I did that. So I was at WARY in Westchester Community College, and I would hang out all day with Peter Cans, and he was the station manager, big record collector. It has a weird thing about the Moody Blues. You're not allowed to play the Moody Blues. Okay. It's kind of odd. But that was him, and he was a very off guy. But record guys are normally off people anyway, so, I mean, that's the deal. But through that, Jim Gibson was there. And Jim Gibson, he's another big record guy in the tri-state area, loves The Who. But he let me have a show. And I had a show on, like, a Thursday night, and what was going on there is, and I love how life is. We were talking about taking the opportunity. Yeah. So I did that. I took the opportunity Thursday night, and I had this show, the Power and Pain show, which was a parallel to what my fanzine was, and I was a major rager. Hey, WARY. Yeah, and my friend Mike would sit there, and Jim would get me interviews with bands. So I had Overkill come down to the station, and I talked to them. I met King Diamond in the city. He got me passes for L'Amour's, and we hung out with Megadeth and Flotsam and Jetsam. I went out to Connecticut to Death Angel, and then we were hanging out with Poison because we were championing Poison at that point in time before they were anything. They were in like an RV, and we would hang out with them and talk to them. And what we would do is we would record them on quarter-inch tape, and then I would splice the tape together with the music with a razor and tape, which is like
archaic,
unbelievable. Yeah. Like I explained that to like my students, like this is what I do. Yeah. And then you take a razor, you take tape, and they go, no way, man, you can't do that. I was like, that's what we do. So we would build these shows, and that went for a while. And what happened was really cool. There was this kid there, Dave Penna. And Dave Penna, do you remember the show? I don't know. Well, you might. There was a show, Kids Are People Too, back in the day. Yeah. And Dave was like a 12-year-old kid that wanted to be a DJ. And he was like, hey, Dave. And he was at ARY, and like he became famous for that. So Dave then he DJ'd at a local nightclub in New Rochelle, New York, called Streets in New Rochelle. And this was back in like 87, 88. And Streets was like the place to go to see bands. I mean, that was the place. It was like Friday night was hair metal night, Saturday was thrash punk night. And by this point in time, I'd left high school, and now I was like, I'm going to college. Yeah, right. So I go to the summer before college. Dave gets me DJing at the nightclub. So that was like my first time working in a nightclub and whatnot and such. At this point in time, another local band popped up that I thought was awesome. And Sal, the drummer of the band that I was working for, his drum teacher was this guy Sal that worked in the gas station in Mayapack at 7-Eleven. And he gave me his demo of his band Toxic. And I was interviewing King Diamond at Road Racer Records, and the woman in charge, Holly Lane, was like, "Hey, you know any great bands?" I was like, "I just got this great tape in my pocket last night from a guy I know. Let's listen to it." We sat there with King Diamond and listened to Toxic, and she's like, "I'm calling these guys up and signing them." So right there on the spot, she signed this band. She's like, "I'm calling these guys on up." And I went on to work for them for quite some time. So like my purpose in life was to get my one band, Azier, and Toxic booked anywhere I could.
Yeah.
So when I was DJing, I was like trying to get them in that club, and it paid off. So what happened was I started going there, and I would show up and hang out and hang out with the sound guys. And what happened was there was this guy who was doing monitors, and I'd like if they had a big show, I'd help load in.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, sure, I'll move stuff. I'll sing Journey. I don't care. All right. So we did that, and the guy who was doing monitors, I guess he was a little bit of a junkie, and he, on a big show, couldn't do it. So they're like, Adam, you could do this. Like I was loading in. So they put me on a monitor desk, like not even knowing what the fuck was going on. And that was it. I started doing monitors. Uh-huh. And then I hung there, and we did everybody, man. That club for me was like, that was a golden chapter right there. That was like Testament, Creator, Nuclear Assault, Winger, Kicks. I mean, everybody at that period of time that people look back at as like the big bands, they played that club. And it was another small room like Maxwell's, and it sounded great. And it was just always a good time. It was always a good time.
Yeah, I think a lot of those smaller clubs, like for me, you know, right now there's not a lot out there, and of course in the situation we're currently in, I mean there's no live music, but I mean my favorite place that I wouldn't want to see go away and is like the Bowery Ballroom. It's a small place, but
small, it's
intimate, the sound's amazing. It's when you're there, everyone's there for that band. You don't have anybody next to you who didn't want to be there in the first place. That's one of the things that I loved about Maxwell. So if it was a packed house, it's because everybody wanted to be there. Everybody wanted to be there.
Or it's like, oh, we just showed up and we're having a good time.
Yeah,
and this band's great.
Yeah, I mean, I've walked down the street in Hoboken and being like, you know what? There's got to be a show going on tonight. I want to go see.
Yep.
And I would just walk in and, hey, you got any tickets available? Yeah? Okay, I'm in. And then I would go.
And you were never disappointed.
And never disappointed.
And that's like going back to like, I was talking to my friend Todd, who worked with me at, not Todd Abramson, Todd Hirsch. And Todd is a funny guy. He has quite a story himself. But Todd was like busboy, bar back. Todd did every single job in Maxwell's at one point in time. I let him mix a band. I just like, mix a band, bartend, you know, all this stuff. You're the chef tonight, you know. And that was like our fun little weird thing to do with him. But it would be the Tuesday night shift, and the Tuesday night shift would be me, and Todd would be at the bar in the back room, and then there'd be some random person at the door. Like we had this girl Dory, she was there, and it'd be maybe one person there. Or 50 people there, but a lot of times it's like 2 people. Like the Eels played on a Tuesday night, the Eels.
Yeah.
And there's 7 people there. And we watched them, and it was amazing. The Cops played there, and it was amazing. I mean, it was just like Crooked Fingers was there on a Tuesday night with like 30 people. And they're like, we don't want the stage, we'll just play on the floor.
Yeah.
I was like,
well, it was one of my favorite shows that I ever went to there, and you know, it was actually it was a tough time. 9/11 had just happened, and nothing was really open, but Ken Stringfellow from the Posies. Posies is one of my favorite bands of all time. Ken Stringfellow, I've seen him a bunch of times. Great guy. I talk to him every time he comes around, and there's 5 of us there for Ken Stringfellow because 9/11 had happened. You couldn't get anywhere, and he just said, "All right, guys, can you just turn the lights off on the stage?" And he sat down Indian style with a guitar and played. And it was just, you know, it was a somber time, but it was like, you know what? I don't think anywhere else this would actually happen.
Yeah.
Like it was the aura of the place that you could do that.
You could do that.
Nobody
you could do
cared.
that, and no one cared, and it was great. I used to, I mean, if I was to continue my progression through stuff, I toured with lots of bands. But what happened was, at one point in time, I was out with an industrial punk band, and we were doing pretty good. We'd do some big venues and little venues, but there'd be a night or two where every once in a while, there'd be nobody. And, like, the keyboard player would be like, fuck this. And it was like, dude, it doesn't matter if there's 1,000 people here or one person here. Because that one person is paying to see the best show of their life.
Yeah.
So you have to just bring it. It doesn't matter how you bring it. It doesn't matter what you do. You got to let go of any of those walls that you got and just play hard. And he's like, I don't get it, man. And
well, the thing is, you don't know who that one person is either, though.
Yeah, you don't know.
You don't know who that person could be.
Can you pause the tape? And we're back. I'm sorry.
So, no, it's fine, man.
Nature calls.
Nature calls.
Nature calls.
So we were saying one person or a million people, and you don't know who that one person could be. So if you're in a band and your whole job is to play music, and that's what you want to do, you want to play music, just do it. Why does it matter who's there?
Just do it. It really doesn't matter. And I think that's one thing. I was sitting there one day with a very famous band, and they showed up at Maxwell's, and I'm in the back, and I was sitting with the singer, and I tried to get along with everybody. I mean, it's just me. I get along with everybody. Yeah. It's very rare that I would actually argue with an artist. And I mean, when I traveled as a sound guy, and when I visited as a sound guys are fucking dicks. I mean, sorry, can I curse on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we're you know, there's some. It's like a chef. You know, you think you're like the greatest thing ever, and it's like, you know what? That's not it. It's about playing with the band and making it sound good, and if there's a good vibe, then it's a good day.
Yeah.
All right. So I've definitely nodded heads with a couple people, but it was really for petty, stupid things. But if the vibe is good, and that one person there is enjoying it, you won. It could be the biggest credit in the world. It could be like, hey, I write for the New York Times.
Yeah.
I'm the only guy that showed up in the snowstorm. Yeah. Let's rock.
You never know.
I remember the Pie Tasters came down from Boston, and it was a blizzard, and they showed up like 2 hours late. And there's like 30 people there. And everybody waited. Like, they called. They're like, we're going to make it. We're like fucking halfway. We're coming. And they showed up, and no sound check, just got up, and like half the band played on the floor, and it was just the greatest vibe. Like, those kind of things are so uncontrived. It's like we're talking about like the Academy Awards, and it's got to be this, this, and this.
Yeah.
You know, that natural expression of playing awesome music and connecting with the crowd is it.
Well, it's being an artist. You know, getting an opportunity to be an artist and to not have somebody tell you what to do, and you just do what you feel is going to be best at that moment. And that's what's so great about live music is when you watch people, you can tell when they're really enjoying what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Because half the time they're doing it, they go to another place in their head and they don't realize what they're doing and the influence they have on people. You know, I've seen bands numerous times, and, you know, I can tell when I've seen them when they're having more fun than I am, and I can tell when I've seen them when I'm having more fun than they are.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure for some people, though, it gets to be, and I'm sure after a while what you were doing, too, like, okay, I got to do this again at some point, you know, after a 13-day stretch of...
Well, sometimes, but you know what? Every artist is different, and it's kind of a cool thing. I think the only time that was really a thing was when you tour. When you tour, a lot of times you're trying to win over a crowd. Unless you're a big band, you're trying to win over a crowd.
Yeah.
Like if you're White Zombie, it's given. Yeah. Right? So we toured with White Zombie. I was with one band, and it was a given thing. And then like KMFD, it's a given thing. It's a great thing. But every night was this whole, like, we're going to win the crowd over. We're going to win the crowd over. So I toured with this band, and they were called Deep Jimmy and the Zepp Creams. And they were from Iceland. And they were like, you know, Deep Purple, Jimmy.
Yeah.
And they were that rock kind of thing. And they were, like, really, like, weirdos, and no one in the world knew them. And the manager guy booked them in, like, biker bars. And they're, like, weird, little, odd kind of... I don't mean to say that, my Icelandic friends.
No,
but they were, like,
fine.
you know, totally alternative, weird, dressed in the 70s, and they played biker bars. And that was their main concern is, did we win them over? You know? Or, like, the guy that was like, oh, you know, one person. Their whole conversation was, that show sucked. And I was like, sounded good from my position.
Yeah.
Everybody out in the audience seemed to have a good time. You really need to get over it. You know, and just kind of let yourself go and go. I was talking with Alejandro Escovedo, and he was over at Maxwell's, and he'd been there numerous times, really great guy. And I like guys like that because there's no inhibition, you know, they know who they are. It's like going back to what I was saying before. I was sitting with a kind of famous guy, And I was like, and they were like a band that like went from nothing to major label to a push.
Yeah.
And we were talking, and I was like, so I heard about you guys. I always play like I never heard of it. And I was like, so where are you from? And how long have you been doing this? And he's like, we've been together like 8 months. I was like, so where's the street cred?
Yeah.
And he's like, street cred? I was like, you gotta get those hard times to really make it.
You got to drive around in a van that breaks down every place you stop.
And he turned to me and he said something really cool. He's like, this right now is my street cred. And I was like, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
You're not in because they were in Arena the night before, and then they were in Maxwell's. And we got a lot of people like that where they'd be like, oh, we're playing Saturday Night Live. Can we come on down? We're playing the Garden opening. Can we come on down? And he was cool. He became a very famous person.
Okay.
A very famous person.
We're not going to get that name of that famous person.
No, I'm not. They'll hunt me down and kill me.
No, that's all right. You can keep that to yourself. So, I mean, your journey just, it's amazing. I mean, from starting with your brothers teaching you about Van Halen, the Led Zeppelin, to your progression of going through high school, teaching other kids, having a radio show, and all that. There has to be, and you're saying a lot of stuff about, there's a lot of hardcore stuff, your punk rock, and that's awesome. Do you ever dial it down a little bit? Do you ever like have something to bring you down off of that? Like if I'm listening to Sepultura for 2 hours, now I need a break.
Wow. All right.
All right. And then I'm like, you know what? I think right now I'm gonna go put on some Cheap Trick or some Hall & Oates to bring me down a little. Like, do you have any, or are you tunnel vision?
No, not at all. No.
Run to what you're doing?
No. I like that, and I like that you kind of think of me as that guy. I am the most eclectic music guy out there. I really am. Like on my radio show, the guy I work with is like, dude, I got an email the other day. It's like, so I was listening to like Bathory, and then it was the theme song from Shaft. So like. I like mellow. I like pop. I like jazz. I like everything. I really like everything. And we're not inside, but like if you went inside, my record collection's in there. And like I've been getting into like old singer songwriters like from the '70s, Joe South, big Partridge Family fan. Okay. Shit like that. I go through phases of things like. I was obsessed with the Sweet for a long period of time, and how could you not be obsessed with the Sweet? And but then like I'll venture into like deep grindcore, and then like right now I've been listening to the Struts a lot lately because they're just so snappy.
They're snappy. I saw them open for Foo Fighters.
And that's and like, oh my God, what is it? The Church of the Cosmic Soul, man. That stuff is crazy. And then there's great power metal bands, and I mean there's no lack of good music out there.
No,
there still is no lack of good music. But what we were saying before, what there's a lack of is I grew up in the heavy metal scene where it was all developing.
Yeah.
And like all those bands.
Where it was growing.
Where it was growing. So like I saw Metallica at the Left Bank in Yonkers, which was maybe smaller than Maxwell's, right? And that was back in the day. And I saw Anthrax and all those bands that way. And the hardcore bands like Suicidal Tendencies played my Italian American Club and all that great stuff, and it was a scene, and the people that were into that scene were there, and I thought when I was doing the industrial music, I was with a band called Chemlag for a while, Chemlab and Sister Machine Gun and Virus 23, and that was kind of ping-ponging off the Nine Inch Nails thing, and that was a scene, and we were traveling around very punk rock at that point in time.
I think I had a Sister Machine Gun, the cat on the front of it.
Oh yeah. All good stuff and all great people, and there was definitely an overlap between metal and punk and all that stuff, and I met a lot of the great players.
I think it all came from the same place, don't you? Like the metal, the punk, the grindcore, it was all the same place, and it was for self-expression mostly.
Well, everything's self-expression. It's that's what punk is. It's self-expression, or metal, or like I have a friend. He's a big Doom player, and if you know him, it's like, wow, that's totally your dude. Yeah, you're the doomiest guy.
Do you think we're missing that now? That self-expression. Do you think I think it's so hard now. My big thing nowadays, and I don't know if you'll agree, but a lot of people seem to fall in the same place, is that it's so easy to put music out there, and there's so much good stuff out there.
It is.
But the stuff that's bad gives the stuff that's good a bad name. So, like, there's websites, Bandcamp's one of my favorite websites.
I love Bandcamp.
I can go on a rabbit hole for 12 hours and not realize that I've been listening to music for 12 hours trying to find stuff.
Yes.
But it's always when I come up to something and I'm like, why? Well, what? Is this really you? Like, there's some stupid things out there where people are just
contrived.
making, people are making fart noises on a keyboard and calling it their song. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
I feel as if there's always going to be that. I always thought that, like, MTV was the end all of end all. Like, once MTV kicked in, it killed metal in its own regards. It gave access to everybody, but then it gave everybody the availability of being in a band. And then there was a lot of bad bands.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like tenfold. Now we have bad bands. Nowadays, with digital media and the World Wide Web and all that good stuff, I could fart in the cat and do it.
Yeah.
We can make a song right now. You ready?
Yeah, sure.
But I like bad music. So don't get me wrong. I like bad music. So, like, I remember and it's actually, some things aren't bad but could be considered bad in its own way. Like, if you look at, like, a Daniel Johnston, people will be like, that sucks. But that guy's
He's
incredible
talented.
songwriter.
Yeah, he's a great songwriter.
So I used to be, and I'm still into this guy Bill Callahan, who is Smog. I don't know if you're familiar with Smog. So all these really weird, simple, lo-fi records. And I remember I was sitting with, you ever hear of Fear Factory?
Yes.
So they were living at my house at one point in time, and I would sit in my back room with Burton Bell, the singer, who's an amazing guy, just so cool. And I would play the records, and I'd be like, Bert, look, this is what's so cool about this music. You could tap your foot, and you're in the band. And he'd be like, you're right. And so, like, even if there's something bad, it could be good.
Yeah.
I think what's bad is commercialization. And like you were saying, like we were talking about the Academy Awards before, it's got to be this, and this.
Yeah.
There's a generic structure to music that it's overproduced.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my favorite all-time bootlegs of all time is Elvis Costello. And it's him, and it's just him playing acoustic guitar. He opened for Bob Dylan and just plays all his songs.
Yeah.
Raw. And it's, at its core, perfect. The notes, the lyrics, all tied together in a perfect way. It doesn't need a piano. It doesn't need a drum. It doesn't need an orchestra behind it. That's where I like to strip back, any of these big artists out there and see what it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, I throw this out there because one of the things what I love about music is a lot of times I can tell when someone is actually really talented, even if they are over commercialized. And one of my go-tos is always Katy Perry. And Katy Perry is extremely over commercialized, but she did an unplugged session, and when she's singing Fountains of Wayne Hackensack by herself with an acoustic guitar on stage, I was like, this is what I want. But it's not what her management group or the label want. They want to push her to have,
she's a multi-million-dollar artist.
Yeah.
But I appreciate Katy Perry doing that, and I'm a Katy Perry fan, so don't get me wrong. I feel as if Taylor Swift does that.
Yeah.
And she has the control over her career now.
Yeah.
She could do anything she wants.
Yeah.
And she'll still make billions of dollars. I think Katy Perry could do the same. What did I just find out about Katy Perry? That she was in, like, POD or something at one point in time. She was a backup singer.
Wow.
For, like, a new metal band or something.
Okay.
And you could watch, I think she was on, like, The Late Show as a background singer or something.
Got to look it up.
But she also started, like, this is pathetic that I know all this Katy Perry stuff, but I love her. She's had a baby. She was a Christian recording artist.
Yeah, she was a Christian recording artist. Yeah, I knew that about her.
And then she moved to L.A. and was in, like, Pod or something. It's like a name you know.
Yeah.
From that period of time. And she was, like, the background singer in a big song. And there's, like, music videos and TV appearances with her, like...
just in the background.
Singing in the back.
That's
so great.
That's all.
Oh, my God.
See, but so that's awesome, too, because she actually lived that life of being in the background and,
Yeah.
and being in that van. You're talking about that, where's
Street
your street cred?
Working hard.
Yeah, working
Working
hard.
hard.
And working
I think
hard for that career.
every musician has a tough life, and expressing yourself as a musician is tough. And I know a lot of musicians that deserve a lot more than what they have, but they're satisfied with what they do, and they get to go play every night. I was just the other day. I was driving through Hoboken. My mom lives in Hoboken, so I pick her up and bring her out here to the burbs. So I was driving, and I still know like a lot of people in Hoboken, but I saw this one guy I know, and he's a musician, and he's always been a musician. And I see him walking down the street, and under his arm, he's got his acoustic guitar. And I was like, there goes so-and-so. He's going to go rock out, and I bet it's going to be good.
Yeah.
All right, so, I mean, there's that one thing. There's a country musician. I'm not a big fan of new country. I like all music, but new country, that's kind of a line for me.
I'll tell you what, you and I are the same exact person. I love all music except for the new country.
The new country really is a line for me. It's just, it kind of wants to be hair metal, yeah, but also it's just it's a way overproduced thing.
Yeah.
And there's deep cut bands in there that are good.
Oh yeah.
But it's very commercialized. That's having their big run right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. New country, but the guy, who is it? He's a big guy, Travis. I'm thinking of the country artist now, but he said something that I thought
Travis
was really good.
Tritt?
No, it wasn't Travis Tritt. It was. I want to say he wore a cowboy hat.
Okay, Tim McGraw, Garth Brooks.
No, he's one of those guys. But he said a really cool thing, and he said, my grandfather gave me my guitar, and he said, you will never be alone. And I think that's true for a lot of musicians.
Yeah.
If you have that instrument you could play, you're never alone. So I have a nephew, and he's a piano player, and he's like a kind of sideline kid, quiet, but he'll spend hours playing his piano, and it's like, dude, keep playing.
Yeah.
And his parents are like, I don't know. It's like, no, he's doing the right thing. Yeah. I'm going to get him a cape. He's going to be in a band, and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay.
And that's why I give so much credit to, I have a lot of friends who are, musicians, and they're in their 40s or 50s, and they never had a break, but they're fantastic, and they still write new songs. To me, that's what I always say, once a songwriter, always a songwriter.
Yeah.
You're in the kitchen, you're cooking dinner, you're writing a song.
Yeah.
Like, you're always writing a song, and I just think that people still go and do that and have that outlet. It's amazing, and I hate when people give up on that, because you don't know that could be what you were meant to do. I think a lot of people who didn't have that break or have their music or have anybody tell them how great they were, unlike today's society where you tell everybody how great they are, but that time where somebody wrote a song that connected with me, that was somebody that wasn't big, that I saw open, and I never had a chance to tell them how great they are and how much that song meant to me, and then they just stopped making music. It's so sad to me. And I'm sure through your illustrious career of watching all these bands, there's so much of that that has happened. And, I mean, is there any band that you either were involved with or that you saw that had a really short run and just you were like, why'd you go away, and you never heard anything from them again? Is there someone that you always lust for more? I'm sure you have thousands you could pull
there's
from.
There's lots of great bands, I mean, through the years that have come and gone. I mean, crossing many genres. So I always try and hunt down, there's a period of time where no one put out records, they put out CDs.
Yeah.
And that period of time is where if I was to win the lottery, I would start my own vinyl company to hunt down all those things. So like I was listening to the other day a band called The Beautiful, who were out of New York City, and what a great album. And it was kind of like early 90s, like the Jane's Addiction umbrella was happening in that era, and just really offbeat stuff. I got a cassette over here, and it's by a band, Tribe After Tribe. And Robbie still does it. He's out in L.A., and he's got quite a story. But their first album and their second album, phenomenal, like great stuff. He went on to play with the Pearl Jam guys and like side project things. And a lot of really great musicians still survive based on side projects. They're so good that bigger musicians see that and they're like, oh, we'll do this.
Yeah.
And we'll do this together. It won't be a big like worldwide sensation, but it's still something. I feel there's this thing that I try and give inspirational videos to my students. And there's this one where Steve Jobs is talking, and Steve Jobs says a really interesting thing about success. And he's like, the people that succeed are just fucking crazy. Because why would any sane person continue on the road that they're on? And a lot of people give up on their path. And I think if you're a songwriter, a musician, and you're 85 years old playing guitar in a wedding band, good for you.
Yeah.
You've done it, man. You know, you're progressing, you're still jamming. And the original reason why you got there was because you played a song and it worked. And now you're doing it with a bunch of other people. Songwriters, what they need to do is just keep cataloging and writing.
Yeah.
And, you know, the legacy comes out. There's like all these really great documentaries you watch about artists and musicians where, like, no one knows they exist. Like Finding Sugarman. Right, Searching for Sugarman. That's a great example of like, here's this guy, now he's doing construction.
Yeah.
Right, he made great music, and then, you know, this one little microcosm in the world thought he was the greatest thing ever, and they continued on and made him like the voice of a generation.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
he didn't even know.
Yeah, he had no idea.
And that's a great thing. It's like you might not even know. Like you might have done something at one point in time, and it has an impact on all these things.
Yeah.
So that's a great thing. There's a great documentary on like HBO about a street photographer, Vivian Mayer, and she was like a nanny, and she went around the streets dragging her kids around with a photograph, and she died, and all her stuff was in storage, and then her stuff was in storage being auctioned, and some kid bought it for his thesis, didn't even use it, but then 6 months later was thumbing through and was like, wow, these are amazing photos, and he went back to the auction house and bought everything up and started researching her. And now she's like the most renowned photographer for her genre. So a lot of times, like, even if you're a great musician, you may be doing the greatest stuff. You may be found after the fact.
Yeah.
Which is kind of tragic in its own weird way.
It is tragic. One of the things, and with music, and why I love it, and why I'm able to sit here and talk to somebody that we've never met before, and you and I can sit here and talk about music all night, like we're doing.
I got the boombox.
Yeah, and one of the big things is the fact that there is so much music out there, and it is tragic if you don't know about it. But the fact that it's there, and I always say, I respect musicians so much because once they record it, it's in the ether forever. Just like now, how people are like, oh, your tweet's there forever. No, but music, it's there forever. And music means so much more than that good tweet or that shitty tweet that you put out there. Music hits in so many different ways, and you can have so many different songs that mean so much to you.
But I love that, like, with music, it's kind of a discovery thing. So like I was saying, I found this really crazy band. I went down the rabbit hole, and I wound up in Japan, and just like watching videos, and next thing you know, I'm watching this band, and they're like this crazy doom band that's been around for 40 years, and they're just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like who the fuck are these guys I never heard of in my life? And now I'm just like listening to them. Like this is awesome. And
well, the art of discovery with music.
The art of discovery is one of the greatest
things. You're
things.
so fulfilled when you find something like that. That fulfillment, you didn't do anything except find it that was already out there.
It was there.
That other
there
people had at some point. But you found it, and that's what I always say too. People are like, well, I don't know if I found this, but you got to check these guys out. I'm like, no, you did. You found it. You discovered it for you.
For you.
Because it means something probably completely different to you than it does to me when you hand it to me to listen to it.
Yeah,
which
I found
is
this
awesome.
Great band the other day from like 1971, and they were from like Nottingham, England, and they were like kind of a heavy prog band. Never heard of them before in my life. Looked at the record, never saw a vinyl like that before. Amazing stuff.
Yeah,
and that's the great part about music. And it's like you said, going down the rabbit hole of Bandcamp. I find stuff on Bandcamp all the time. So that's a modern day discovery.
Yeah.
And what's sad and kind of great about it is you could find that and do that, but back in the day you had to work for it. Like you'd have to go to the record store and search. Why'd you get that record? I love the cover.
And I talk about it all the time. I mean, I found so much amazing music.
Oh my God.
Just because the cover looked cool, and also because like I'd look on the back and see, what label they were on, and I wasn't looking for Sony. I was looking for the Sub Pop or or Fearless or those old school indie
Touch
labels.
and Go, all that good stuff.
All that stuff, and you're just like, oh, okay. So I love the cover, and then putting it in, and I always said the thing about that was even if I didn't like it, I found it and I'd go back to it and I'd usually fall in love with it. It was usually one of those things like you don't give things a chance. I said it in my previous episode. I said, you know, one of my favorite bands, like I have so many favorite bands, but one of my favorite bands of all time is Face to Face, punk band.
Yeah, great
absolutely
bands.
Amazing.
Great band.
And they get, I was in the military, driving to the store. Their third album just came out. They were just signed to a major label. Couldn't wait to hear it. Got through the fifth song on my way home and threw the CD out on I-95.
Yeah,
like that was, and I never gave it a chance. But now I go and listen to it.
You revisit it, and
I'm just
great.
like, I'm the asshole in this situation.
I was sitting. It's tough though being a musician. I got to say, because. Especially when you're on a label and there's pressure and it's your own machine. So I have a friend, and he's in a band, and they're kind of like a punk New Jersey band that had a good run and all that good stuff. So I was at Louise and Jerry's a bunch of years ago, which is in Hoboken, great, seedy, wonderful bar where all the musicians and the artists hang out. So I was sitting there, I see him, I haven't seen him in a while. I say, hey man, what's up? He's like, oh, we're going back in the studio. I was like, oh my God, what are you gonna do? Just look crazy. You're gonna make some new wild stuff. He's like, well, we're gonna try and replicate our sophomore record. I was like, why? He's like, well, that was one of our big money makers, and you know, we want to try and boost our net income each year. And I was like, that's how you're approaching your new record?
Yeah.
I was like, I can't buy you shots tonight.
Yeah.
He's like, why? I was like, because you're not doing yourself justice by making something new and great. He's like, but it's going to be new and great. I was like, but I think you're going to try too hard to be that band again. And
you're not.
You're not progressing. You've grown since then. That was 8 years ago, man. And he's like, I guess you're right. I'll take a shot at Jameson. I was like, so that's going to give me a shot. But that's the whole thing. Is like, a band's got to progress. Absolutely. They can't get locked into that one thing. And a lot of times a fan, like yourself, you're driving 985, like, fuck this. And I find rediscovering records and listening back on them now, things that I've sold out, I've gone back to and I've been like, yeah, that's a pretty good record.
Yeah.
But I also find that a lot of records that I thought were amazing when I was a kid are awful. Right? It's like, oh my God, I used to listen to that record?
Yeah.
Wow.
I do that too.
I guess I understand why, but I'm just not in that state of mind, or the production.
Well, it's different. It's grown up. Dylan, the first guest on this, had said, he's like, listening to Bruce Springsteen when I was 17 years old meant nothing to me. But now when I'm 40... Oh, it means everything. It means everything. You understand because it's a different place and time. So when the artist matures and say, you find something when you're 13 and you absolutely loved it, but that artist at the time was 19 or 20, they get older, so their music gets different, their life experience, and you usually write off a life experience or something that's happened, and you're not growing with them anymore because they've surpassed you, because that big jump from 13 and 19, you're still teenagers,
also
but that's a big gap.
A lot of times, you'll be with a band for about 3 or 4 records, and then your life switches, and you're not with the band anymore. And they put out 3 more records, and then you're like, those records. It's kind of like you strayed away, and maybe there'll be a record later down the road, or you always have those first 3 records that you're worth.
Yeah.
I always, when I started, it's crazy because I was a live sound engineer forever, and the second I walked in the studio, I was like, oh, you could play it back? You could do it again? There's no feedback? Okay. Yeah. So it's... When we started talking and producing and engineering in the studio, it was so different because it was like, you want to think about, will this song be relevant 10 years from now? Will it stand the test of time? Are you just knocking something out for the sake of putting it on a record and filling it? Or are you making something that will have integrity later, that will have a maturity later? And that's how I would approach it with bands when I go in the studio with them. And it's a totally different ballpark when you go in the studio as opposed to live. It's wild. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's definitely cool.
That's awesome. So we're coming in on some time here.
Oh, hello. I'm Adam.
But what I like to do is when I wrap this up, I do my weekly 3s. It's 3 things that I'm listening to now. It could be new. It could be old.
Oh, my God.
But it's 3 things, and I get it out in the atmosphere so other people can check it out, too, if they haven't heard it. Is there anything now, like 3 bands or artists or things that you're just listening to right now? 3 of them. Try to hold everybody to 3.
Yes.
So that you're listening to that you want to get out there.
Oh, my God. So, Yeah, there's so many bands to listen to, but I really feel as if Donnie Bennett out of Australia is so worth listening to. He does disco.
Okay.
And he's a single guy. He's come to New York and played, and he's awesome. And Messa from Italy is just fucking phenomenal. It's doom jazz with a female singer, and it is just amazing stuff. And anything pre-70s Bee Gees.
Okay.
Really, anything the Bee Gees did before the 1970s was phenomenal.
All right.
Like, really, it's just like, wow.
That's awesome. And that's.
I mean, then we get into the Walker Brothers, and I mean, there's a whole ride right there. But I mean, it's Witchery. Listen to Witchery. I mean,
all right. So that's Adam's threes this week. My weekly threes are Brad. They were
Shame.
Yeah,
I love that record.
So we were talking about side projects earlier, and that's Stone Gossard side project.
Oh my God, Brad Shame. That should be on vinyl. I think it is on vinyl.
They re-released it recently. It's phenomenal. Sean Smith, God bless his heart, is no longer with us. Was a voice that if you've never heard Sean Smith sing a song, sit down, do yourself a favor, listen to Sean Smith do Prince's Purple Rain at a live concert out of. I think it was Pennsylvania. I forget. It was one of those Pennsylvanian towns. But my next is Middle Kids, Australian band.
Oh, I don't know that.
Phenomenal band. They're doing great things. Got to see them a couple of years ago. And last but not least, I have the Stereophonics, British band. They are, to me, they're I think one of the best rock and roll bands that came out of that British time in the early 2000s to now. So. For all you out there, you can find us on Spotify, Google Podcast, iTunes. If you like what you're hearing, please download the podcast. Give us 5 stars on iTunes so we can get this out here for everybody. Email is myhiddentracks99@gmail. Twitter is @myhiddentracks1. You can go to our website, and it is myhiddentracks.com. And Instagram is HiddenTracks99. So everyone, thank you so much. Adam, I want to thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you going on this journey of your life with you.
Oh, my
God. This is amazing.
It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
So
sitting in my garage.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Everybody out there, have a great time.
Woo!